Hey guys, and welcome to Tabby Talks, where we chat all things fitness, business, lifestyle, and a little bit of shit. So I think it's been like 2 months since our last episode, but that is because this time of year is hectic with especially the shows coming up, the Ifbb, ICN, so many clients competing. So that's why we have been a little bit delayed in getting up our podcast. But speaking of the shows coming up, I've actually got one of the Ifbb judges here with me today, Vicky. So thank you for coming on with me.
Thank you for having me.
Now, I just want to get a bit of an introduction firstly in actually who you are and give me a bit of a background into how you actually started working with the Ifbb.
Sure. So I've been involved in bodybuilding for a long time. Started competing myself back in 2007.
Oh, I didn't know you competed.
Yeah,
Okay.
I used to be a figure girl.
Wow, yep.
That back then there was only figure fitness or women's bodybuilding. They were the divisions. That was it. So, I started competing back in 2007, so a long time ago.
Yeah, crazy.
And back then the IFBB, it's now split. There's IFBB Elite and obviously Pro League / NPC worldwide. It was one federation at the time, and that's who I was competing with. I did a little bit of judging in my off seasons back then.
With like judging with the IFBB?
Yes.
Okay, cool.
Yep. And then when the split happened, I think that was around 2017, 2018. My old coach is Mark Gretsch, who is the promoter in New South Wales.
Cool.
And he knew I had done judging previously, and I was living in Sydney at the time, and he asked me if I wanted to judge at his shows.
Yep.
And it went from there. So I think I've been judging pretty much every season since then.
So when you first got into it though, were you a coach as well? Like what sparked your interest to be like, oh, maybe I would actually judge these shows?
I don't know. I just was really interested in seeing the other side of it and learning about how, like what goes on the judging table and how things are judged and that kind of thing. So I spoke to, at the time it was the people that ran the federation then, and I started judging.
Crazy. So when you first get on the panel, they make you, forgive me if I'm wrong, they make you sit on the side, don't they? And then you kind of fake judge and then.
Yeah, so it's called test judging.
Yeah.
So what you're doing is you're still judging, you're doing what all the judges are doing, you're handing in your scorecards, but those scores are not getting included.
Yep.
They kind of put them to the side, so they're not being tabulated as part of the real scoring.
Yeah.
But it's just to sort of gauge how you're going with the scoring and whether you're on par with, what
the actual judges are doing.
What the judging is looking like. So,
And then how do they determine, like is it after like one season where they're like, oh yeah, you're pretty good?
You do it. Oh, it's been a long time since I've been through that process, but I think you do it a couple of times and it's pretty easy to see if someone has an eye.
Has the eye.
It's something you've either got an eye for or you don't, I think.
I do always say that even with heaps of coaches that coach athletes, I say there's definitely an eye for the sport and there is an aspect of you've got it or you don't for sure.
Yeah.
And what made you then step away from competing yourself?
So I did, my last show in my head was never my last show.
Okay.
I had pretty major surgery following the last time I was on stage on my shoulder and my bicep. I had a really big tear in my shoulder. I had to have like 3 different things done in my shoulder, and as a result of that, my bicep also tore off. So had to have that reattached. There was a bit of rehab following that, as you can imagine. And then I sort of sat back from competing for a bit. I did prep again. 2016 was the last prep I did.
Okay.
I think it was about 3 weeks out, my grandmother passed away, and I was really, really close with my grandmother.
Yeah.
So it was just, for me at that point, it was I can't get on stage.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and I just haven't, since then I've just been judging consistently, and I love judging, and obviously it was one or the other.
I was going to say it still keeps you involved in the sport though, very much so, and it's obviously a passion for you too, so it keeps you within the community, which is quite nice.
Yeah, yeah.
So I want to get a bit of a background. Actually, let's chat about this season coming up. So you're judging, it's in 2 days, literally.
Yes.
So this is the first shows as well where we're going to be having the fit model division.
Yeah.
Have you been watching any of the fit model categories in overseas shows?
A little bit of it, yeah. But also been watching a lot of the content that Tyler's been putting out, but also the head judges around around the world, especially in America.
Because that's what I was going to say. How are you guys going to go off your judging for Sunday? Is it just, have they gone through overviews with you guys so far, or is it literally just going to be based off the winners of the current shows?
It's really hard to say based on the winners of the current shows, because you can only judge
what's up there.
Yeah, what's on stage. So, if shows that have happened haven't necessarily had someone that has met the criteria, they've had to award it to,
someone
the
close
best person as close to it as possible. And that happens with every single division in every single show. You're not always going to get people up on stage that meet the criteria. So we have set criteria to judge to, and that's what we'll be judging to.
I mean, it will be one of those things, just like, bikini, like every division, it changes over time anyway, and it evolves. So we'll see how we go over the weekends, but definitely it'll be a different winner season A versus season C too. So
this is true. And I think also, in hindsight, we've got the benefit of having, when bikini first started, the look for Fit Model now is very similar to what the bikini was when it first came out, and for several years until it kind of started evolving into what it's become. So I think we've got the benefit of the hindsight in what we've seen in the past.
So true, because we are kind of going off that, I think it's the 2017 Ash K Olympia look, which I actually love, to be honest.
Yeah.
But yeah, you can think how much the sport's evolved in the past 8 years. Like Fit Model is going to do the exact same thing, which I'm actually quite excited for. So with the season this year, what shows are you going to be judging at? All of them, all the interstate shows?
Yep, every show this season.
Any international shows?
Not this season. I'm hoping to do the Amateur Olympia again this year. But
yes.
I obviously don't know whether that's going to happen yet or not.
You did that last year, didn't you?
I did, yeah.
Do you find the judging is different in regards to how things are operated doing an overseas Amateur Olympia?
In some aspect, it's a little bit faster, I think.
Fast-paced, yeah.
Yeah, very fast-paced. And I had the benefit, so that was the first time I judged at the Amateur Olympia, but Brett was on the table with me and I was actually sitting next to Brett.
Okay.
For those that don't know, Brett is one of our head judges.
Yeah.
So, and he had done the Amateur Olympia the year before. So he had already given me a little bit of insight into how it operates.
And you can feel a bit more comfortable with someone there.
Yeah, but he had also kind of pre-warned me that, by the way, they may not tell you when they're about to, return a lineup back to the diagonals and call the next, do the next call out. So make sure you're getting your placings done really quickly.
Right, okay.
Whereas in Australia, kind of the head judge will say to us, are you guys right? Like, is there any more comparisons you want to see, or are you ready for me to send them back and bring the next call out?
There's definitely a benefit to that because it makes you quicker at what you do and more efficient.
Yeah.
But also sometimes you're probably like, guys, just give me a little bit of time so I can make up my mind. But it would make your judging more efficient when you do come do the Australian shows for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'll see the results of it now.
I know. So I want to go back and what we were talking about with the evolution of bikini from what you have seen it become. From when did you start judging? Did you say 20?
Consistently. So for Pro League, I think it was 2017. I think that's when the split happened.
Okay,
so I've judged pretty much every season.
Do you feel like because obviously bikini has just gotten bigger and bigger, do you feel like we're in a position now where bikini is going to continue getting bigger, or do you feel like the implementation of Fit Model will stop that trajectory?
I think that having implemented not just Fit Model, but we also have a wellness division, which is kind of, even though it's a different proportions from bikini figure, that kind of thing, and it's not based on the same symmetry look or symmetrical look. It's kind of an in-between, whereas before there was this jump from bikini, which is what Fit Model is now going to be.
Yeah.
And so it hadn't evolved at that time, and the next thing up was figure. So it really had to evolve, I guess. I think having Fit Model now will stop that from
evolving too much. Now, with the actual criteria on your guys' judging panel, because I know right now with Fit Model, they're saying they don't necessarily want, like, obviously striations, they don't want a deep etched like tie-in,
Yep.
not defined abs. Do they want that in bikini now? Is that what?
We're not looking for striations. We're still looking for the same level of conditioning that it's been for the last few years.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we're not looking for bikini to go getting harder.
Yep.
Fit model is a step down from what bikini has been for the last few years.
Mm-hmm. And do we know how many competitors we have doing fit model this weekend or not yet?
Ooh, I got sent the numbers a couple of days ago, but off the top of my head, I couldn't tell you. They're in my phone.
I'm interested. I feel like I only know like three or so of the actual competitors.
No, I think there were more than that on my.
There definitely will be.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think a lot of girls as well, because we haven't actually seen fit model, we're going to have a lot of bikini girls that do compete this season, and I feel and be like, oh, you know what, maybe I am better suited to fit model, which will be a good thing, and it will even out for sure over time.
Yeah, we've even had a few, I know at the posing workshops, we've had a few come and see us judges and ask, do you think I'm going to be better suited to fit model or to bikini?
Mm-hmm.
And I've had some coaches send photos through to ask the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I've had some competitors send photos through saying, I'm not sure which to do. I also went to, in Sydney, Beck at the Australian Posing School ran a bodybuilding expo maybe about a month ago.
Oh, cool.
And I went along to that to man the Ifbb stand.
Yep.
And a lot of the questions that I had were around fit model.
Yeah, interesting.
So, yeah.
And what are the most common questions people are asking you?
Oh, it was mostly, girls that are interested in doing it and aren't sure whether they should be doing fit model or bikini.
Do you think it's a good stepping stone for people that are wanting to get into the sport to
Absolutely
go there? Do you think, was that part of the reason they have implemented it?
Yeah, I think so. I think bikini has evolved, to a point where for a lot of people who are beginning in the sport, it may seem like an unachievable, or it's so far away to get to that. I want to get on stage, but it's going to take me several years to get to that look. Mm-hmm. So I think it was designed for that. But some women don't want to get as muscular as what bikini has become as well. So
for sure.
Yeah.
I guess we'll obviously see how it goes. So going into more so of the criteria now, when you are sitting on the panel, there was obviously, I put up some questions to get people to ask for us for our podcast today. And of course, we're going to get the basic one. What makes or breaks a close, first or second? But I'm also saying this in the sense that if you have someone that's obviously overly conditioned, but say they have not great shape, or you've got someone with amazing shape but they're a little bit fluffy, what are you guys differentiating between first and second place to make that call?
It's going to be who best fits the criteria. So it's really hard to, without visually showing me, somebody who is way too conditioned and then someone who has the right shape but is too fluffy, unless I can see them, it's really hard to make that call. But we have to go with what best suits
what the whole lineup is too. Like if the whole lineup's kind of a little bit fluffier and then there's one conditioned person, potentially maybe they are fitting it better. It depends on who's there. Now, what is one of the hardest lineups, I guess, you've had to, you're probably going to look back and be like, geez, I can't remember. But what are one of the harder lineups that you've seen over the past few years for you to have judged? Do you remember any specific?
In bikini specifically?
Hit me with bikini.
Look, one of the recent ones that I can think of, I'm going to say season C last year's.
Yes. Nationals?
The overall lineup.
Yeah.
Like there were 5 girls in that lineup. It looked like a pro lineup.
It did, yeah.
So I think Tony actually showed some of the guys over, when we were at the Olympia.
Yeah.
And they said, which pro show is this?
Yeah,
that is how good.
Amateur.
But our amateur level, like our amateur quality is that good though.
It is good. Yeah. Do you feel like we will ever be in a position where we're giving away more than one pro card a season?
It's a really good question. I guess if the numbers warranted it. Mm-hmm. The problem is if you're announcing that you're going to be giving that many pro cards, you don't always get that many that look like they could be pro on stage, and then you have to give the pro cards out because that's what's been promised. Mm-hmm. And then you end up with, you're watering down the pro standard as well. So I think it's a really fine line. Like I understand that for our amateur league, it's really tough because so many want to turn pro and there's so few opportunities. I think that the fact that we have more opportunities now to go and compete overseas is a really good thing for the sport, because once upon a time we were told that we weren't allowed to go overseas and compete.
Well, that's what I was going to ask you, because I think because right now, realistically, you're only really going to be doing like sort of season A or season C. We've only got one opportunity to turn pro here. Do you advise people to go overseas and get in front of other judging panels and do other shows?
If you've got the means to do it, like by all means, I understand competing is a really expensive sport as it is. So even, adding on to that, an overseas trip, Australia's not the closest place in the world to most places. But if you do have the means to go over and do a couple of international shows, it's never a bad thing. You're putting yourself out there in front of other judges, but also the more you compete, the better you get.
Agreed.
You get more confident on the stage. Your physique starts responding better. I used to find the more shows I do in a season, the better my body would start responding.
Okay.
That was me personally. I know you can overdo it and overdeplete and that side of thing. But if you have a good coach who knows your physique, and taking on judges' feedback is always going to be a helpful thing. I mean, look, a great example of this is Kath Kavanagh, who, she kept just missing out over here. She went over, she did the Amateur Olympia, then she went to Brazil. She got second she won her lineup in the Amateur Olympia here. In Vegas, just missed out.
I think she did in Japan overall as well. Yeah.
She then went and did Brazil. She came second in that one to the person that won the overall. And then she went and did Japan and won her pro card.
Yeah. It's just, you've got to have that grit to actually just keep going sometimes instead of giving up.
And she kept coming for feedback. Her coach kept hitting us up for feedback. And she was taking it on board and absolutely listening and applying what we were telling her to do.
I think that's what's most important too. Like, remember, you guys are the judges at the end of the day. Your coach, for sure, like your coach has an eye and can give you feedback, but get the people actually judging you to give you some feedback. I think so. Because at the end of the shows, how long does your feedback turnaround usually take? It's like 3 weeks, isn't it?
It depends on the show. So the ones at the beginning of the season, we've got a little bit more leeway to to get it back.
Yeah.
The ones coming up towards
nationals,
the nationals are a bit harder. We've got to turn them around a lot quicker. I know that last year in season C, the last couple of shows, Simone ended up putting a tick box on the feedback form saying, "Are you doing nationals?" Because then we prioritise those
that's
ones.
Smart. Yes.
But in the shows that are leading up to nationals, like the last few weeks, we usually will stay back. And if athletes come to us at the end of the show, they can generally get some feedback like live.
And do you advise people to do multiple state shows? What's your thoughts on that?
Again, if they can, then it's never going to hurt.
I mean, the more times you can get in front of the judges, right, it's never going to hurt you. So I do sort of agree with that as well. Like, I think if you're feeling like your body's needing a bit of rest between your state show and nationals, but for example, if you're doing VIX, you've got I think it's 4, almost 5 weeks potentially between nationals. I would 100% be doing another show if you don't need to get too much more in condition, for example.
Yeah, I used to find it harder the longer there was between shows.
Yes, I remember this was 2022, I did nationals, but what happened was I did the Vic show, 4 weeks later was nationals, and then 5 weeks later I had Japan Amateur. So it was like 10 weeks in stage lean condition, and by that point I was just like, could tell I was just losing muscle and I was dead. So for me, it probably would have been worthwhile at least having a bit of a refeed or potentially not doing VIX and doing a later state show.
Yeah.
But it's all just about planning too, guys. Like, just figure out what's going to be best for you and what your body's going to respond best to as well. So now, another big question that we always get, especially because Taylor, guys, was supposed to be on this podcast today, but she's actually sick. It would have been really good to have her insight into the posing side of things. But in regards to posing and I guess the beauty aspect of bikini, how big of a role does the whole beauty aspect play in the judging criteria?
Okay, so I'll break that up. So the beauty aspect, look, it's not going to, at the end of the day, it's a bodybuilding contest. It's not a beauty pageant, but bikini is about an overall look. And if you're not nailing that overall look and there's something that's detracting from that package, it's going to draw our attention away from you. So I guess in that way, the beauty aspect plays into it because you don't want us to sort of overlook you because you're looking very plain or, you know, that kind of thing. So that side of thing, the posing side of it, huge. You can have the best body on stage, but if you can't show us that you've got the best body on stage, we can only judge what we can see. So if you have the body that fits a criteria best, but you're not showing us that and somebody is outposing you, they're going to, you know, overlap you in
I see
points.
it so often when it'll be like the overall and then there's 5 girls and they're up there for like 20 minutes and they're literally just posing at the end of the day. And it's like you can tell who's going to win most of the time just down to that posing mark. And honestly, I couldn't think of anything harder as a judge to be judging that either because it would be tough.
Yeah. And the other thing is, and I can't emphasize enough, how important posing fitness is. I know that a lot of people overlook it as something just like it's an added extra. It is as important as your physique and as your training, and you should be taking posing as seriously as that because you've probably been at plenty of shows where it's been really close and we have put competitors through posing you know, over and over and over again for an extended period of time. Sometimes 15, 20 minutes they're up there posing. If you can't hold your poses because your posing fitness is no good, you're going to fade, which means that the person that can hold their poses is going to come out looking better than you.
I see it a lot, the posing stamina. Like I see it often in men's bodybuilding classic. You guys put them through the rounds, but often like what I do in prep is I usually do like kind of like Tabata style posing. So I'll like hold it for 30, rest for 10, hold for 30, rest for 10. So I'm building up my fitness. But with that as well, do you know when people are standing on like the sides, everyone's always like, make sure you're still holding your poses because the judges can be looking. Are you guys actually looking?
Yeah, absolutely.
Really?
Yeah, because quite often we might be looking at a lineup and we've placed people, but we're looking at the people at the back and we're like, we will sometimes see someone and go, hang on, they should be in this call out.
Right.
And we might call them out or we might leave a couple behind and then push a couple back. We know who's in the, you know, top 2. Put 1 and 2 back and then call a couple more out.
Interesting.
And then they may be in the mix for the, you know, for the rest of that top 5, top 6. So it is really important to keep holding. And the other thing is if we've got to go back and finish off placings and you're standing there and, you know, you're just looking flat or, you know, dropping your shoulders and sticking your gut out, it's not a good look. But we might then, when we're finalising our places, go, oh, hang on, why did I have them so high?
And same thing when we're doing our T-walk at the start, is that being judged?
It's not being, well, when I say it's not being judged, it's not being judged as in,
you're not physically writing things down?
I am. I'm writing notes down. I use the routine section to take as many notes as I can for feedback because I prefer to go off what I was thinking at the time.
I love that.
But also when you're doing your individual walks, depending on whether they're at the beginning or the end, if they're at the beginning, we're often looking for who do we think belongs in that first call out. So yeah.
And
they move them around sometimes and put them at the beginning, sometimes later on. But
so what do you mean?
So I know we used to bring everyone out for their eye walks first and then, and sometimes we do that after we do the first lot of comparisons.
Oh, true.
But often we're doing that and we're looking at, okay, that's a standout person. They're probably going to be in the top, like in the first call out.
Because now we've changed it to girls walk out and then they do their individuals. Is that right?
Yes.
And do you find that is working more efficiently than everyone doing their T-walk? Okay, why is that?
It just makes it run smoother, I think. Yeah.
I guess as well, to be honest, it probably gets the nerves out so that when girls are doing their T-walk, it's actually more efficient as well.
Yeah.
That would make some sense.
That's true.
Okay, so when we are then on the judging panel, I want to get a breakdown on what actually happens between you guys. Are you chatting with each other? Is it more so you all do your individual thing and then, because who's head judge?
It depends on the show.
It depends on the show, It changes each state, right? Are you all collecting your thoughts and handing it to the head judge and then they choose? Or is it more cooperative than that?
Okay, so you've got the head judge who is kind of, obviously at the end of the day, they're in charge of the judging. Generally, one of the people that is sitting next to the head judge will be collecting everyone's who they think should be in each call out. So head judge will say, okay, say there's 15 in a lineup, we're going to do 3 rows of 5. Or if there's 12 in a lineup, we're going to do 2 rows of 6. So then they'll say, I need your top 6.
Okay.
That person next to the head judge will collect everyone's top 6 and make a comparison and work out who has the most votes to be in the first call out. Obviously, head judge has the overall say. If they think something's off, but generally speaking, it's the majority of who has voted for. We're usually all in alignment with each other. There might be 1 or 2, if they're really close, like, 5th and 6th or 6th and 7th, it may be slightly different. But generally speaking, the top 4 or 5, we're all pretty much in alignment with each other.
And if it's differentiating between first and second and it's even between the panel,
it won't be even. There's not an even number of judges.
But is that including the head judge?
Yeah, we've got an odd number of judges.
Purpose.
Oh, yeah. So the head judge still puts in their scores.
Okay, yes.
Yeah. But we have an odd number of judges for that purpose.
Right, so that is smart.
Yeah, so that if it's a split decision, there's always going to be 1 vote more for one person than another.
Okay, yes. And with all the categories that we have, what's actually your favourite to judge? Or has it changed over time?
Yeah, look, I mean, it used to, I think for women it used to be figure because that was my category.
For sure.
For men, it used to be open bodybuilding because it was the big boys. But look, over time, I've grown to I love judging all of the figure, all of the categories. So I don't really have a favorite anymore.
I guess at the end of the day, you probably just look at it all like bodybuilding as opposed to each individual division.
I won't lie, I love watching the posing routines. I absolutely like the men's posing routines, the women's physique.
So do I.
The classic, I love classic posing and I love that shape.
Yeah.
But I really enjoy judging all of them now for their own reasons.
Did you feel like when you first started you had a particular eye, well obviously you would have had a bit more of an eye for figure, but do you feel like, because for example, how do you just learn to be good at bodybuilding? Do you know what I mean? A good bodybuilding judge. How does that sort of process develop?
It's a really good question. I'm not actually sure.
Yeah, I guess it would come with time and practice.
Yeah.
But have you ever had, I'm not going to be like mentors, but have you had someone help you with the process?
I think over the years there's been several. There's been so many come and go from the judging panel in my time, even when I was first judging years and years ago. There have been a lot, but I don't know. It's Brett's always been really, really good to learn from.
Who's been on the panel the longest?
I actually don't even know.
Because Em is one of the newer judges, yes?
Em's been there for a few years now too. She's been a few years,
but she actually has. I remember when she first
started. I think
we've
all been there for a few years now. But I don't remember when Em's first show was.
And do you guys have frequent meetings or like during the season, off season to discuss the categories?
We have a WhatsApp group.
Okay, yeah.
We catch up when we can. We coming into the season, we're frequently on the WhatsApp group chatting about things, the different criteria. They send around criteria for us all the time leading into season. But as the shows come up, we catch up a bit more and we try to do that in person where we can.
So has there never been a part of you that's wanted to do coaching or posing coaching or anything kind of outside a judging panel?
No.
Really? Okay.
No.
It's so interesting.
I am actually a PT. Like I'm a qualified PT.
Yeah.
I don't work as a PT these days. I used to do a bit of PTing, but
because what got you into competing yourself?
Long story short, I have been training for, I'm going to show you how old I am right now. I've been training for about 28 years.
Wow.
Probably older than you.
Yeah.
I initially was working in a gym. That's how I got into training.
Okay.
When I just left high school, I started working, and my boss there was an old school bodybuilder from back in the day. And he showed me a few things about, training here and there. And my body shape changed really, really quickly. Like I started putting on muscle really easily back then. And he actually put the idea in my head back then. It was, you should compete.
Okay.
But I was 18 at the time, and I was too busy partying on the weekends and whatnot. And then when I was 20, I had a really big car accident, and I actually broke a number of my vertebrae.
Oh, wow.
So training stopped for a few years. And then I got into swimming to try and strengthen my back when I could. And then when I was able to get back in the gym, I started training to keep the muscles in my back strong enough to support my spine, because I was told you're going to end up with arthritis.
Okay.
So I got back into training, and then that idea came back to me. And I got to an age and I've gone, I want to do a show. I'm just going to do one. But back then I didn't know anything. Like, there were no coaches.
No.
There was no social media.
No.
There was a forum on the internet called bodybuilding.com, and we all used to chat back on that. A lot of the coaches that are around now and the old school guys from like Doherty's and stuff were on there. And I learned a lot about dieting and nutrition and all that, just basically from that and old school magazines. And
is that how you found Mark?
I found Mark through when World Gym first opened in Australia. The first one in Sydney opened in Penrith. And do you know Lindy Olsen?
No.
Okay, so she is like a old figure girl from way back, and she had a world championship, and she ended up running Oxygen magazine.
Wow.
So anyway, she was doing a seminar at World Gym Penrith, and I went out there to the seminar, and then she put me in touch with Mike, who is co-owner with John Davey of World Gym Australia. And Mike was actually my very first coach.
Oh, cool.
And I met Mark through Mike, because Mike used to coach Mark as well. Mike stopped coaching after a while. And I ended up going with Mark.
Oh, cool.
So
and how many shows did you end up doing?
All up, I think it was probably about 15.
Oh, that's a decent amount.
Yeah, I competed over a few years.
Yeah.
It's probably over about eight years or something.
And that was never any international shows?
No.
Because I feel like even just doing international shows has only become a recent thing.
It has. We were told back then that you had to be invited to do an overseas show.
Did you actually have to be invited?
No, it was the same rules. It was the same. You had to do a regional qualifier, and then you could apply to do an overseas show. And
now, actually, some clarification on that. So I'm pretty sure that Arnold's is usually the first show usually of the year, right? So if someone wants to do, I guess they're doing season A, there is actually shows prior to our state shows. Can us Australians compete in those international shows, or do we need to do a show here first?
You had to have done, I believe it's a season C show the year before.
Okay.
Yeah, so that will qualify you to do an international show if there are no regional shows in your country beforehand. Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense, because I've had a lot of people ask for clarification on that. I'm like, I have no idea either.
Yeah, so you can qualify by doing season C. Yeah, a season C regional qualifier show will get you a qualification to do an international show as long as there are no shows in your country before it. Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense. But say if they've done season C and then season A has already happened here, they can't do an international show.
No, because there has been
shows here.
Okay,
that makes sense. So I want to go into more of like the highlights for you and what you've really, because obviously you've been doing this for so long now. There's obviously a lot of passion there and things that have highlighted you to want to come back. There's obviously not many negative experiences. What are some things that have been standout highlights for you?
Oh, my absolute hands down standout was doing the Amateur Olympia.
Wow.
Yeah, I don't even have to think about that.
Was that in Vegas?
Yeah.
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 And what was so much different about that then?
It was just, look, I think it was it's the prestige of being over there, right? that's first of all, it was the 60th year of the Olympia. So it was a massive Olympia.
Yeah.
But the reality of getting there and seeing that there were only 9 judges on the panel from around the world and going, hang on, I'm one of those 9. That's what made me realize, well, this is awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you have to be invited to be on that panel?
Yes.
How did they go about that?
So Tony nominated.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So, yeah, Tony is the director of Pro League in Australia, can nominate judges. Yeah. And, he nominated or put our names forward and we got asked to go.
So would that be the same process this year? He would have to nominate you or they would invite you back?
I don't know. I believe he would still have to put our names forward. I'm pretty sure that's what happened with like Brett last year because he had done the year before.
Okay.
I guess they would then look at my scoring from last year and go, how did she go? Yeah. So.
Yeah. And how long were you over there in total at the end? Did you just go for a week?
I went for the week there and then I was there for almost another week after.
Did you watch the Olympia as well?
Oh, yeah.
Was that the first one you've watched in person?
Yes.
It's crazy, isn't it?
It was insane.
Yeah. I feel like the year that I think I went to 2022 as well, Vegas. And I remember just after that show, there's something you'll just never forget.
Yeah.
Even the expos are crazy. I think if anyone has the opportunity to go do an amateur O or at least go and watch the Olympia in their life, like you 100% have to go.
Yeah.
And what would you say would be, I know you're probably going to say the Olympia, so let's maybe say besides Olympia, what would be a show that you would love to judge?
Honestly, I'd probably love to go over and do the Pittsburgh Pro.
Pittsburgh Pro, yeah. Have you been and watched it or New York Pro or anything?
No. But I know it's another big expo and
it's a whole thing. Are they ever going to do another, like, obviously not an Arnold's here, but some type of fitness expo with the Ifbb linked?
That's a question for Tony. He has mentioned that he would like to have another pro show out here.
Yep.
Like he used to do, but whether that's another expo or I'm not too sure. But I mean, even before he was running it as the Arnold, he was running it as FitX for a number of years.
That's right.
And so it was still a big expo type thing. So I'm not sure, maybe it would be another, if you're going to have a pro show, you probably would do that, but I can't answer.
So I think our last pro show was 2020 maybe? It's a while ago.
No, it was supposed to be, was it
COVID happened.
Yeah, COVID happened and it shut down. Like he couldn't run it.
That's right. And did you enjoy, Coach, judging those shows when they were at the expos?
Yeah, they were awesome.
Yeah, that would actually. You honestly get so many more spectators as well because you get people coming for the expo.
Yeah.
So the people watching it does build a bigger, obviously, bodybuilding community. But I'm really excited for this year as well to see the new venues as well. I haven't seen the layout though because we're at the Melbourne Pavilion. Where have we usually done it? What's it called?
The Arts Centre at Moorabbin.
Arts Centre, yes. Yeah. So I know our tea walks for bikini are going to be changed.
Yes.
And can you talk about that?
Yeah. So it's not because of the new venue.
Oh, okay.
It's actually just to bring it in line with what they do internationally, and it also stops competitors from, I guess, wasting time.
Yeah.
At the back of the stage where
we can't see you anyway.
The lighting is shit.
Yeah.
Honestly. It doesn't, the back of the stage really, that's not where you want to be.
It's not showing you off.
No, you want to be at the front. Yeah. That's when we set up in the morning, we get someone to come on stage and practice posing while we're there so that we can work out where the best lighting is at the front of the stage.
Yeah.
So that is where it is the best. So you may as well just do
walk
your posing
straight there.
Yeah. So that's what's happening.
Now, do you find as well, going into sort of the whole lighting thing and what we're talking about before with makeup, do you find the bikini color plays a major role?
It can do, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I've given feedback on change your bikini color before.
I think Taylor's literally had feedback that's been like, don't wear black.
Yeah. I think it's not just the
color as such.
It's not just a color. It's what matches your skin tone with the tan. It's what matches your makeup, your hair, all of it. Like you want it to be an overall look.
Yeah. So
I mean, I've commented on bikini athletes' makeup before in feedback.
I think you should. Yeah. I remember when I did the Japan amateur and because obviously I've had a Japanese lady do my makeup as well. I remember I got off stage and the judges were like to me, your face is white. And they're like, your eyeliner, everything. So I had to fix it before I went in for the overall as well because sometimes you don't realize how drastic you're going to look under those stage lights too. So
they're harsh.
They're super harsh. So it is important to, I wouldn't even say trial it, but make sure you're going to people who know stage makeup. And obviously that's why we have Tegan too.
Yeah. So using the recommended stage makeup people is always going to be helpful because they know what the lights are like. They know how to match makeup to tan, that kind of thing. But I think bikini colour does feed into the whole overall look and whether it stands out or washes you out or.
So it's not necessarily you're like, okay, guys, do not be wearing orange. It's more so, is it suiting you?
Correct. Yeah. Is it flattering on you?
And so you wouldn't even say it's certain like brunettes should stick to these colours and these colours. Okay.
Depends on skin tone. It depends on it's mostly about your skin tone, hair colour, makeup choice. You want it all to match.
I guess this is a question that sort of ties into it too with tan, right? Some people, we get like tan marks, we get streaks, or as you know, some people start sweating when they're on stage. What do you do if someone does start sweating on stage and it's something that they can't necessarily help, but it is going to then affect their look? Is it something where you're like, bad luck?
Yeah, I don't think starting to sweat starting to sweat halfway through while you're on stage, it's not really going to
make or break.
If it's profuse, it may, because it shows posing fitness may not be as good as it should be. I think it's more if your tan is really bad before you even walk out on stage, that is really going to play a part in how you're looking overall. If it's towards the end of your time on stage, then it may not impact as much.
And has Pro-Tan always been the go-to tanning company?
Oh, for years it has now.
Yeah. Because I remember there's still some people that use like Dream Tan and stuff as well, but that's what I was going to chat about. Are you seeing it's hard, like not as in harder to judge, but when someone is a completely different shaded color, throws off the judging a little bit?
It doesn't really throw the judging off, but it can throw off how you look. So it may not do you any favors to be that person. Dream Tan, the problem with it is while it looks great at a fitness expo on the stage, it kind of fills in the gaps. It's like spack fill, like it's
so true.
Yeah. So it takes away some of the definition.
It's kind of like a mold, isn't it?
Yeah. So it takes away, especially when you're looking at some of the visions that need to be harder looking.
True.
It makes them look softer.
Yes.
You can't see as much definition as what they would want us to. I mean, maybe it would help if you're too conditioned for your division, but no, it's not a good look on stage.
Yes, that's exactly why, again, we have the tanning ladies. So
absolutely.
I always say to everyone, I'm like, just stick with what is suggested and offered because it's then consistent for everyone as well.
Yeah.
You know you're not going to be sort of overlooked or misplaced because you've done something your own or you've gone to some random person.
If you have spent, however long getting ready for a show, and I'm not just going to say 20 weeks dieting or 12 weeks dieting or however long you diet for, you've also got to take into consideration you've been prepping through an off season, that kind of thing. If you're going to spend that much time and money invested into getting on stage, then you may as well go the extra mile and spend on the things that are going to contribute to how you look on stage.
Yes, I agree with this.
You don't want to waste what you've done because you don't want to spend an extra $50 on a tan.
I always say this as well because even with people, they're trying to cut corners and save money on hair and makeup and stuff. I'm like, guys, hair and makeup's probably going to be like $200. You've spent a hell of a lot more money than this on your prep so far. Like if you're not a makeup artist yourself, I'd probably recommend just don't stress and get someone to do it.
Absolutely. Yeah.
You want as little stress on show day as possible. And what are some tips you would give to competitors to help them be a little bit less stressed when it comes to preparing for show day if it's their first show of the season?
practice, practice, practice. Know your posing routine like the back of your hand so that if you lose your mind on the day and you have a mental blank, you could do that with your eyes closed. If that makes sense. You still might be nervous, but at least you know what you're doing when you get on stage. The other thing I always say to competitors, and I say this at workshops because we do get a lot of, not even just first-time competitors, a lot of people just get nervous getting on stage. No matter how I used to get nervous, didn't matter how many times I'd been on stage, I would get nervous. And I just couldn't help it. But look down at the judging panel. 9 times out of 10 you'll get a smile from us. So, and that often I have found can help people relax a little bit more. It's those things mainly. Just make sure you are as prepared as you can be for everything. If you can have an extra pair of shoes at your comp, have it, because your shoe might break or something ridiculous like that. You know, a little sewing kit in case something happens to your bikini. Always just make sure you are prepared for every little scenario that might pop up on the day.
Yeah, and obviously get to the venue early too and set up and just so you can chill as well.
Absolutely.
Now, obviously bikini, but every kind of category is very, I want to say, how much of a role do you feel like the subjective nature plays? Because a lot of people do say that bodybuilding is a subjective sport, but you do also have a criteria. So how big of a role does the judging biases play in your decision?
I think if it's very, very close, it may come into it. And when I say, like when we talk about judging bias, it's not about favoritism, that kind of bias. It's more of your preference in, are you looking, you know, do you prefer that shape to that shape or, do you prefer a little bit more conditioned or a little bit less conditioned? It's not so much about which one's your favorite up there. Like that doesn't come into it at all. But we've got criteria that we need to mark against. And we need to be accountable for what we put on our forms as well. And I will be absolutely upfront. We have been questioned about in this close call, who was your choice and why? And we're asked to justify our reasoning behind it. So you've just got to be comfortable with what you're putting and making sure that you're
doing it for the right reasons.
Doing it for the right reasons. So there's always going to be, when it's a very close call, there's always going to be a little bit of bias, and you can see that in sometimes there is a split decision. Like, for example, I think they said that at the Olympia last year, Franciel and Isa, there was 1 point difference between them. That's an Olympia, and that they are Olympia judges who are the highest of caliber judges.
And they're both very different looking.
It was still a split decision between the two, which means that obviously a preference had to be selected at some point.
And how would they go about then choosing?
Well, it depends on what you think meets the criteria better, if it's very, very close.
I think it's one of those things that would literally be determined by what's the panel basing it off on that day too. You can't really decide in advance. Like, for example, like if you see when we're in the lead up to the Olympia, everyone's putting in their predictions of who's going to win. It actually doesn't matter until that day. We can all think who is our favorite, but because biases are always going to play a role. I can be like, oh, as always, Laura Lee's like my favorite athlete, just because she's my favorite athlete doesn't mean I think she should win either. But because I do think she's a bit more of a favorite, I would be like a bit more biased. No, she's better than Jen Dory, etc. Right?
Yeah.
So I guess that would be a little bit hard to put to the side, but yeah, you've got to literally put your biases completely to the side when you're on that panel, don't you?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
And have you ever felt like you've made any calls where potentially later you've thought, I shouldn't, like maybe I was wrong with that? It's a hard one.
I don't think so. I think I've always been comfortable with what
backed yourself up.
Yeah. I make a decision and that's it. That's what I've decided at the time. If you're making the decision at the time, then that's what you were thinking right then and there.
So agreed.
So looking at it in hindsight going, oh, maybe I should have looked at this, or no, you were looking at it at the time and that's what you were thinking. So
yes, that's true. I feel like I would always love to be on the judging panel. I want to know what goes on.
Maybe one day when you stop competing.
Yeah, true. I'll see you there. All right, we're going to do a little game of this or that. So I literally came up with these all when I was like going to bed last night. So you've just got to try not to think about it. They're actually not too bad.
I've heard some of your this or that.
No, these ones are actually chill. I was like, I can't be too controversial. I'm not going to get anyone in trouble. So you'll be fine. But just think whatever first comes to mind. All right. Okay. This or that. Have someone win who is out of shape but has amazing structure, or has terrible structure but they're in great condition.
Amazing shape.
Someone with terrible hair and makeup but good posing, or good posing and bad hair and makeup.
Good posing.
Glutes or delts, what's more important?
Oh, both.
Got to say one.
It's too hard. Glutes.
All right. Crazy rear shot but terrible front shot, or great front shot and terrible rear shot? Tough one.
Front shot. That's what's on the covers of everything, right?
Yeah, true. You don't ever see someone's rear shot on the cover. Be able to judge the Olympia every year but no other show ever again, or judge every show you want but never be able to judge or attend an Olympia.
Oh, or even attend an Olympia. I'm going to judge the Olympia every year.
That's hard. All right. Maureen, Laurelie, or Jen Dory?
Jen.
Actually, to be honest, I agree with that.
I'm a Jen fan.
Yeah, same. Over-conditioned or slightly fluffy?
Over-conditioned.
If you can't do anything, just get in shape.
That's it.
2016 bikini look or 2024?
2024.
High energy posing or slow and sultry?
High energy. Slow and sultry creeps me out.
No winks, please.
No winks, no.
We don't want to see it.
No.
All right, that was good. That was chill. So going into wrap this up, what are you excited for looking into this season? What are some things, your highlights, anything?
I'm really excited to see how Fit Model plays out, to see what the numbers are like, to see how much interest there is in it, and to see if we've got any standouts.
Yeah.
I mean, we're giving away a pro card this season.
Oh,
so
we are too. Oh, I didn't know that. So because how many people do we have to have minimum to give away?
5.
5. Oh, we'll definitely have more than 5. That's fine.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm excited for that as well then. I don't actually know many athletes doing it, like I said before, but bikini is going to be a good one. And do we know how many competitors there are competing?
I don't know. I don't know single numbers. I know that with crossovers, as at yesterday, I think we were sitting at around 210.
For Melbourne?
Yeah, for Melbourne.
Yeah.
I don't know across,
Of
because all
course,
the registrations haven't closed for the other states yet.
So you're doing every state show, is that what you said?
I am.
Oh, wow. Okay. So back to what we have after Melbourne. We've got Sydney?
So next weekend is Perth and Adelaide.
Oh,
So
back to back.
Yeah, back to back.
Jeez, good flights.
Yeah. I think there's one flight that gets us from Perth to Adelaide.
I think that
in
happens
between
every
the
year.
shows, and we're all on the one flight.
Great.
So Perth, Adelaide next week, Sydney the following week.
Yep.
Gold Coast the week after, and then back to Melbourne for the pro qualifier.
Okay, cool. And last piece of advice for first-time competitors.
Get a good coach.
What's your idea of a good coach?
Somebody who is there regardless of, I guess, where you're at in your competing journey. If you're top contender or not top contender, doesn't really they don't have a bias because you're going to be the next pro or whatever they think. Somebody who has a good plan for you, not just coming into the show but coming out of the show.
I agree with that entirely.
Somebody who is not pushy with supplement protocols and, is respectful of what you want to do. And somebody who can answer questions. So if you ask why they're getting you to do something, that are happy to tell you why they're getting, not just because that's what I'm telling you to do.
I was going to say, I think education is a really big, important thing.
Yeah.
The more educated you are as well, the more likely you're going to be able to stick to something too. But exactly what you said, I can't advocate more for making sure that you have a reverse plan. And I always say too, try stick with your coach like after the shows for a few weeks to help you to reverse properly, because your body is in such a kind of crucial state too that if you're not going to rebound and make yourself super uncomfortable mentally and physically. So if you can put a good plan in place, make sure that you do that for after the shows.
Yep.
Well, thank you for coming on. I look forward to the shows this weekend and this season, seeing what happens.
Thank you for having me.
I really appreciate it. So thank you guys for listening as well to this episode of Tabby Talks, where we chat all things fitness, business, lifestyle, and a little bit of shit.